What's up, guys? How's it going? Michael here. So we got some new goodies for the Z900RS. We got some good old Sato Racing rear sets. If you're not familiar with this brand, these are Japanese-made rear sets, super high quality. They retail for about 600 bucks. I found a super good deal on these online, actually on eBay. A gentleman bought a bike with these already installed with like 600 miles on them, and he didn't like them, so he took them off, and I got them for 225 bucks, which is an absolute steal for what these are. So these are all CNC'd. They already have the master or your brake hole setup involved and installed, with the reservoir, so it makes it super easy. These are really nice quality rear sets. There's a lot of cheap stuff out there. You can buy Amazon quality rear sets and all that stuff, but as you know, everything I've put on my Z900RS is generally quality parts. So I got these guys. They look brand spanking new. I'm going to install these. I'm going to start with the clutch side. This is definitely going to be the easier side. This, for the brake side, is going to involve me having to bleed the brakes, completely emptying all the brake fluid for the rear brakes, because this has to be installed and you have to put the new brake line thread onto this. So I'm going to start with this side for the clutch. I'm going to install them exactly how they came, and I'm going to see how they fit. There's multiple adjustments for these, so you can move them up, you can move them down, you can move them back, and then the same thing with this, the foot control as well. This is all the way the furthest point out at the current moment, but you can bring it closer. I have pretty big feet, so I think this is going to work good for me. But a lot of adjustments that you can do with these. So I'm going to start by installing the brake side. Let me show you what it looks like currently. All right, so this is what the current setup looks like. OEM, this is all factory. I have not touched any of this. This is your stock heel guard, stock footrest, and then your adjustment here, or your clutch, or your gear selector, I should say. This is going to have to come off. I'm gonna say that's probably an 8mm, but I'll confirm that in a minute. So we're gonna have to take this off, and then we're gonna have to remove these two bolts, and the whole assembly in theory should come right off. All right, so this is an 8mm. We're gonna just slowly back this out until it releases, which should be, there we go. So this will now pull off, but I will have to remove these two bolts first. So once I get these bolts out, this is now free. This should pull straight out. Okay, so I got a size T10 Allen, or I should say star head on here. So I'm gonna try backing these out. Those are really tight. Let's try a step up. I don't want to strip these. There we go. So these are pretty tight. I'm guessing they probably have factory Loctite on them. So there we go. So we got that off. I'm gonna remove the rest by hand, and then I'll come back to you guys. All right, so this OEM foot controls are now off. This is a 8mm right here that you need to take that one screw out, or small bolt, whatever you want to call it. These two guys are T10 star keys that I used to remove them. There is just one here and then one up here as well. I'm gonna wipe all this stuff down since I have it off with some just detailing spray, and then we'll come back and we'll start installing the Sato rear sets. Okay, so here is the clutch side of the Sato Racing rear set. These are the hardware that we're going to use. So this bolt right here without the spacer on it is going to go on top on this bolt, and then the one with the spacer is going to be dropped in like that, and then the spacer is going to be on the back side. Now, I'm hoping there is no spacer needed for this one. It doesn't look like there should be, but this was everything that was sent to me with the kit from the gentleman I purchased it from, and it was very well packaged. So I'm gonna assume everything's here, and I'm gonna assume I just need this spacer on this bottom bracket right here. The top one should not need a spacer. I am going to use some blue Loctite on these because I don't know if they used them on here to begin with, but I am going to throw some blue Loctite on there just as a safety precaution. All right, so I have some blue Loctite dropped on both those threads. We have that just partially in. I'm going to install this. All right, so this is how the one side looks. I still need to tighten down this 8mm right here to get this perfect, but I have both of these torqued down. Everything is super solid on there. These look really nice and clean. And I'm just going to make sure that the bike does shift properly through the gears, and then we'll confirm that everything is good there. All right, so I've got this side installed and I believe set up to my liking. I'm gonna have to ride with these before I actually figure out if I wanna move this up or back any. You know, obviously I just have this side installed. I haven't installed the brake side yet, so I'm gonna have to use, you know, get these both set up the same way and kind of see how I like. But that's the nice thing with these. Like, if you find that they're uncomfortable, you can try moving them back or up a little bit. Like, I'm gonna give you a visual representation right now. So you can see this side right here. This is the aftermarket. That's gonna be the OEM. So you can see that already the aftermarket of the Sato Racing are pushed back, I don't know, maybe an inch or so. It's hard to actually tell, but definitely a decent little bit compared to the OEM ones. So I do notice overall build quality seems very nice. A lot less slop in here as well compared to the OEM. There is a little slop stack in the, I believe it's the shaft bearing or whatever they call it right here. So I mean, like, that's hard to get rid of unless you change that out. But overall build construction is really nice. They are solid. You know, the whole bike moves with it, so I'm definitely really happy with this so far. But I'm gonna move on to the clutch side, or I might do it a different day because I'm sweating like a pig in my garage, but we'll pick up and I'll show you. All right, guys, so I'm kind of learning as I go. So to take this cover off, we are now moving on to the brake side. There's a reservoir right here. There's a cover on this reservoir. So if we go over to the kit I got, this cover is just gonna slip right on there once it's installed on the bike. So to remove the lid off this cover, you first have to remove this Allen key, or this Allen bolt. So that's gonna come off. I'm just gonna set that right there for now. And then there's also a little cover right here. Now this cover, I believe we can just take that off once we remove this reservoir. So I'm gonna leave this on here for now. It's not gonna fall anywhere. Just remember that it's there because we are gonna have to reinstall that. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna crack this top here just a little bit for now. I was gonna flush these brakes anyways. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hook up my bleeder to the bleeder nipple back here. And I'm just gonna pull all the fluid out because my plan is to just flush all the fluid out anyways. So I'm gonna pull all this fluid out and we'll swap over, kind of go from there. All right, so I completely siphoned this out. I left the cap off. What I did is I came over to the bleed nipple. I pulled as much of the brake fluid out as I possibly could. Now, what this means is this is not a brake bleeding tutorial video by any means. This is just to get all the fluid from these lines, basically that follow down here, out of most of this, because first off, I have to bleed the brakes as well, because I have to, that was one thing on my plan. So I'm kind of just doing this all at once. So I removed the brake fluid from here. If you are doing a full brake bleed and not worrying about this part of it, make sure that you keep fluid in here. But for this video, we drained all the fluid out of here. We got it fairly loose now. We're gonna take this banjo bolt off up here. This is a 12 millimeter. We're gonna put that on there, and we're gonna take this bolt off, which goes to this line. Now this line, when we take this off, is going to reconnect to that part where the little tissue is coming out of. So we're gonna uninstall this completely. We're gonna remove these two bolts, but first we're gonna remove this 12 millimeter banjo bolt. We're then gonna remove these. We're also going to take this off, which I believe is a 10 millimeter, but I'll confirm that when we get to that point. As a tip, I would highly recommend having some shop towels just kind of stuffed in here, because when you take this off, you're more than likely probably going to get some brake fluid in here, and you do not want brake fluid on your paint. If you get any brake fluid, make sure you clean it off immediately, because brake fluid will fade paint, and it will also kind of discolor things, and it's a highly corrosive product, so just make sure you get it off anything. Okay, so this banjo bolt is off all the way. I just have it wrapped in a paper towel so it doesn't leak anything onto the bike. I'm next going to remove this reservoir. This is a 10 millimeter socket, so we're just going to remove this guy. Just, you know, be aware, like, this is a plastic piece, so when you're retightening this down, you do not want to over tighten it, because what you're tightening into is just plastic at the end of the day. So I'm gonna remove all this and we'll go from there. I'm gonna remove these two bolts. We'll get the whole thing off and then we'll go from that point. All right, guys, so I got this side on. The most tricky part to this side, or I'll say one of the tricky parts, is connecting the line, your brake sensor line, that comes from the pedal, which, let me show you on the OEM one what it looks like. So on the OEM one, same as the Sato Racing one, you have this plug with a green watt, or green little like electrical tape on the end of it. This is your brake sensor. It connects to the back, so when you press on the pedal, it sends a signal to the rear brake light to flash. And also probably, I'm sure, syncs with the ABS system. So this line is buried pretty good. I had to take this side panel off, made it a little bit easier. So this line starts right here. That, if you can see that on camera, it comes up to right here. It's this line. It's tucked in, and if you look, if you can see, it's very hard to see, but right back there, it's buried right, can't even catch it on camera, but it's buried right here. So it's right in this intersection right back here. It's gonna take a little bit of time, just don't get frustrated. Take this panel off, makes it a lot easier. All you have to do is you have to press in the little clip and it will pull right out. Installation, obviously the same thing, you know, you just push it in and it'll clip in. But they are, I highly recommend, there's little clips right here. These guys, pop these off. They're kind of like little ratcheting. You just pull them up and they, you know, pop off. So I recommend undoing this one, and also recommend undoing this one right here as well, which holds the wire. As you can see, that little black wire right there, it comes up, comes back, and it plugs in right back there. So do that. That's going to be the most difficult process, or most difficult thing here. So I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of this bolted up. I'm going to put in that bottom bolt. I'm going to throw some Loctite on it, and then we'll move on to connecting the banjo bolt to this guy right here. I need to make sure I didn't bury that. Oh, there it is, right there. So there's my banjo bolt wrapped in the shop paper towels. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll go from there. All right, so these are all on there good, Loctited on both of these points, blue Loctite. I am just using some basic Harbor Freight blue Loctite. I highly recommend doing this on any structural parts or any parts that are important, because a few months ago I had this exhaust hanger bolt fall out of me, and I had to order a new OEM bolt. So that was fun, but highly recommend blue Loctiting everything. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take this banjo bolt down here, which has a washer on the end of it. And I'm going to, this is the little washer. Just clean that up. So I'm gonna pause this for a second, but I'm gonna show you the whole process here. All right, so banjo bolt is installed, snugged down pretty good. We got our reservoir on. I do not have the cover on yet because that's gonna have to be installed after I flush and bleed the brakes and all that fun stuff. But we do have actuation. We don't have any brake pressure, obviously, because we have no fluid in there. But I'll show you guys that our brake switch is at least working. So here's my rear brake. And we have even just a little bit. We have full brake pressure, or brake lights is working correctly for our rear. So that's awesome. Let me make sure front is still working. Just want to double check. But that's how they look, man. They look awesome. The rest is really just going to be putting everything back together and then bleeding the brakes. I am not going to do a brake bleeding video and include this in this because this video is already going to be long enough. But I just want to show you guys the step-by-step process. If you want to do these like in 2 days so you don't have to do them both at the same time, I highly recommend starting with the clutch side. Clutch side takes about 15-20 minutes max. Super easy. This side is definitely a little more complicated because you have your actual brake fluid you have to worry about, taking off this banjo bolt. You also have to remove wiring, which is tucked way back in here. But other than that, it's pretty simple. It's just a little bit more in depth compared to the clutch side, because the clutch side is literally just a couple bolts and it's off. Switch it out, get it to your liking. Now, one thing I am going to do is I am probably going to adjust these, but you know, that's pretty self-explanatory. Adjusting these, you have these 2 bolts, you remove these, you can move them back, you can move them down, you can move them up. Same thing with the brake lever. The brake lever, you have 2 options where you can take this foot, this little peg here, your brake side. You can move it up to this hole right here, or put it right where it is currently. You also, I believe, have some adjustment settings where you can like tilt this thing back if you want to kick it back a little bit. I'm gonna ride with how it is now and just kind of see how it fits me, but this is how they look. So again, that's gonna be your brake side. And this is your clutch side. So I think they look really good. Super happy with the quality of these. They feel really nice. They feel really well made. They're made in Japan. Japan tends to put out some really good parts. If you guys have a nice bike, don't put those cheap eBay ones on them. They're not worth it. You can easily go on eBay sometimes and find really good deals like this where you get a set of $600 rear sets for $225 shipped. So highly recommend doing stuff like these. But again, this is the review on the Sato Racing rear sets for a Z900RS. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a comment down in the comment section and also subscribe. Thanks for watching.